Swagatam Krishna, Sharanagatam Krishna. Swagatam Krishna, Sharanagatam Krishna. Madhura Puri Sarana Mridu Vadana Madhusudan.
So we are on the Divine Discourse number 61, 15th of June 2020, Sharvarinam Samvatsar, Uttarayan, Grishma Ritu, Jyeshta Masa, Krishna Paksh, Dashmi, and on a Monday. So here, Lord Krishna, under the Karma Yoga, has been teaching Arjuna how to do karma in the most appropriate manner, where you divinize your actions, be free from all agitations, and at the same time you cleanse your vasanas and make room for more and more good deeds to happen in your life. So while the teaching is going on, now what we learnt Saturday was of where Arjuna says, what if those people who criticize your teachings, who unnecessarily find fault with your teachings and talk ill about these teachings, then what happens to them? So that's where we had discussed last. Now we move to the next verse. Verse number 33. Sadrusham chestate swasyaha prakrite jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. So here Lord Krishna says something else. Like, you are talking of those people who don't understand anything. They may talk any kind of a nonsense. You are worried about them. But I am worried, he says, of the wise people, where even wise people who are propelled by their vasanas of the past, they also cannot perform or act the manner which they want to. This is the power of Prakriti, Vasanas, Karma. See, here his focus is on the Karma Yoga. So he wants to give more importance to the nature of Karma. Prakriti means more the nature. Jnanavan. Jnanavan is the wise and the intelligent. So here what he tries to very clearly say is, see, each one has a prarabdha karma. They have their own share of samskars and the vasanas. And these vasanas, from time to time, they erupt as desire in the intellect. And from there again, the desire, along with the companion of the intellect being the aham shakti, he goes into doing action, which eventually, with the kartrutva bhava, becomes a bondage firstly. Secondly, it again gets converted into a stronger vasana. And thirdly, it gives him the pap or pun, whatever is he is eligible for by that action. So, Lord Krishna is very clear. Be very focused on what kind of desires crop up in your mind. You can't change everything all of a sudden. See, the cycle is vasanas, vritti, and karma or kriya. Vasana, vritti, kriya. Vasana, vritti, kriya. This is the cycle which goes on and on and on. This is the bondage cycle or the bondage formula. Now you tell me where it started now. Now you want to be quiet. You say, I want to be all good. I am going to sit good and now refine myself. Well, you made a resolve, but pop comes from the vasanas, a desire comes, and you will not be able to do what you want to do. It will take you somewhere else. Arey, a nice movie has come. What are we doing at home? Come, let's go. All 3-4 friends here, their call comes and that's it, you're gone. You wanted to sit down, you wanted to study, you wanted to do some japa, you wanted to meditate, you had so many plans in your mind. But these vasanas, they take you for a ride. We all are aware of Kalidas, the great poet. During Kalidas days, his king by name Bhojaraj, he was one king who had rare qualities of a noble person, meaning he was not only had Lakshmi, meaning goddess of wealth, on his side in terms of a very prosperous kingdom, and at the same time he was a scholar by himself, a great scholar, profound in all the scriptures, in the Vedanta and the Puranas, Karma Kanda, Upasana Kanda, everything. So it was a pride for even Kalidas also, that I am under such a king and I am serving such a king. He was very happy. Now, there was one flaw in this king. Despite all the good qualities, the flaw was that this king had a great liking for gambling. And not that, okay, he used to gamble for say 30 minutes or 45 minutes, 1 hour at best. No. He used to set off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and come back only in the night. That was the kind of an extensive vasana he had towards gambling. Now see, this is a very ideal case where everything is intact, he is doing all great things, but that previous vasana is so strong in him that he doesn't want to give up. So now Kalidas, being his mentor, his guru, he tries to tell the king, convince him in so many ways, hey Rajan, why are you doing this? You have so much money, you have so much wealth, you have so much comforts, but the king doesn't listen. So one day, what Kalidas does is, he disguises himself as a rishi, a sage, and he knows where the king goes, that route and all that. He knows proper way to the place where he goes for gambling. So there, what he does is, he locates a butcher shop there, and what he plans in such a way that as the king's chariot is coming, he is there very prominently in front of the butcher shop, buying meat. He displays himself that way. Now the king, he notices a rishi sadhu who is all robed in orange, saffron color. He's standing in front of a butcher shop. He says, "What is this? What is happening in my kingdom? I need to check. What is this?" So he stops his chariot. He tells the Sarathi, "Stop, stop." And he gets down. He walks up to the sage. He can't make out that this is Kalidas. He has disguised himself very well. And then he asks the sage, "You look to be like a rishi, a sannyasi, a sage, and what are you doing here in front of the butcher shop?" So the rishi says, "I'm buying some meat and chicken over here." "What?" Yeah. See, sometimes, when I drink, so these go very well with the liquor I take. He gets another shock. "My God, I thought you were only buying meat and chicken. Now you're saying I drink also. What are you saying?" No. I'm not that kind of a habitual drinker and all. When I go to the prostitute's house, there it's all drinking, this, that, and all is very common. You have to maintain the decorum of the place. You have to drink over there. So that's why I carry these, whatever stuff I like, the non-veg stuff. The king gets another shock. My God, in my kingdom I have such kind of sages also. Oof. Then he asks, "Tell me, where do you get the money for all this? You are saying you go to prostitutes, you drink and you eat meat and all this. I know that sages live on bhiksha. And where do you get money?" That I made myself quite self-sufficient on that. I gamble and I make my money over there. Now the king wants to tell him, "What is this? Stop all this." But see, he's a learned person also. He says, "When I have this gambling in me, which is so strong, and I have not given up." Because once when Kalidas asks him, he tells him, "What to do, Kalidas? You don't know." There's some issue on volume, I'm told. It's going on and off now and then. Is everybody else okay? Okay. I think, Mrs. Sheila, I think it is at your end. Okay. So when he had asked the king says, "See, this is my vasanas, what can I do? They are so strong and I have been born with this, so I really can't do anything much about this." He had heard this from the king. And now what the king does is, he says, "Can you come and meet me after 3 days in my kingdom, in my palace?" So the sadhu says, "Yes, why not? I'll come and see you." And he goes back to his chariot and he tells the Sarathi, "Now go back to the palace." Next day, he controls himself. See, this he has been doing right from his younger days. Very difficult to control. Day 1 he controls. Day 2 he controls. Day 3 also he successively controls. And there comes Kalidas, that is the sage. He comes and he says, he bows down to the king, and he's just looking at the king. Now the king says, see, you are a sage wearing such sacred clothes and all this japamala and all this, and openly you're doing all this. You're going and buying meat, and you say then you go to a so and so place and all this. I think this is not right, what you're doing. You need to change yourself. So then Kalidas, then he shows up. He says, "O king, I am Kalidas here." And then the king got it. So they both had a hearty laugh, and now the king is a reformed and a changed person. So one has to basically first understand, there is something in me which needs to be corrected. That is the first step for correction. If you don't even recognize what vasanas you have, what raga dveshas you have, what shadripus you have, and in what quantity, tell me how will the correction happen? So recognizing of such situations in life, you have to do your own study, go deep within, understand, and unbiased. Yes, here these are all the qualities which I should not be having, and I need to get rid of them. And how to get rid of these vasanas? Firstly, which is the main source of all these desires. Now the scriptures have given us so many methods. So likewise, now what we have done is, we have see, it is so well connected now while we are discussing this. So which means unless we accept our flaws, you can't do anything about it. That is what we are talking over here. Being that even knowledgeable persons, even wise, clever people, they go by their nature because they are propelled by the vasanas. So now we have to work primarily on our vasanas. We have already started our exercise in terms of doing the Mahamrityunjaya Japa. Correct? Okay. So now what we'll do, tomorrow is Ekadashi. So as we had discussed, we will start learning a verse. And here our intention is something very unique and very spectacular. We are not learning the verse for the sake of the verse and its meaning. Understand this, as I had explained to you all earlier. What we are doing here is, we are primarily, now that neural pathway what we spoke, you have about 86 billion neurons in your brain, and every time the brain does an activity or thinks of something, there are branches known as the dendrites, or they're also called as dendrons. So about anywhere between 2000 to 10,000 dendrons are created from the neurons. 86 billion neurons, imagine, in our brain. And in that, for each and every activity, there is a separate dendron stem created. Now the dendron comes from the Greek word which is known as a tree. So from that neuron there comes a tree, and as and when you give that particular thought or that activity, it gets strongly embedded in the mind, and to such a point that this also goes back into your subconscious mind, and As in the case of reflex action, how do you do? There I don't think the mind even, you have even thought of it, but the mind has already taken an action. So our objective is it has to go to our subconscious and become an instrument which, without even our knowledge, starts controlling us. So the first and foremost aspect which we are taking is from the chapter number 2, verse number 4. And what does that talk about? The central theme there is moha, delusion. Now what is this moha, delusion? A wrong understanding, that's all. Wrong understanding of what? Your own self. We say, no, अरे खुद को क्या समझाए? Meaning खुद को बड़ा समझा, खुद को क्या समझा? Like these are where you have thought something which you are not. And secondly, people around you, you are very close, near and dear. They also don't have an understanding of themselves and also of you or others. And in general, a wrong understanding of the entire world around us. In today's life, most of our diseases are all psychosomatic diseases, which arise because of delusion. The whole Bhagavad Gita is focused on only two things: moha, shoka, shoka, moha. Meaning, if there is no moha, there is no shoka. If you want to get rid of shoka, means distress or sorrows, unhappiness, if you want to get rid of this, one has to get rid of moha, meaning a wrong understanding. Get things correct. For that, we have to first acknowledge that yes, I think I need to relook at myself. I think I am wrong over here. Have you ever heard somebody telling us, many people keep talking, that fellow did like this person did like that, I did like this, and he did like that. There in the entire conversation, has anybody told that I was wrong and the other person was right? It is always they come and talk saying that this fellow did this nonsense to me, this fellow ditched me like this, that fellow did that wrong like this. It was always they say that I am right, but not that the other person was right and here I made a mistake, I should go and ask forgiveness. No. This is that wrong understanding. The moment you say, yes, let me look at myself and then let me start looking at people around, get a right understanding, your health will also improve. Because these psychosomatic diseases, they all come from your mind. From the mind, they go to the prana. And from the prana, Shakti, they then go to the Stula Sharif. And they show up in Stula Sharif. You know by now, prana, in prana kosha, what you have is basically it all regulates your health and well-being also, isn't it? So the mind is the root cause. When the mind gets disturbed, you will start seeing all these problems coming up. So this is a wholesome thing. Okay, so we first start with this shloka, and then the next shloka will be surrender, which is shloka number 7 of the same verse. Okay, so likewise we will start. So these are all heavy bullet points which we are giving to our brain, and we are saying this is my mental attitude now. I want to be a changed person. Now how do we do this? What we'll do, I will chant this shloka on a recording and send it to on the WhatsApp group, And now we said in 3 days time we have to by heart the shloka, and then after that we go to another shloka with a theme again. So these all will become positive affirmations. See the multitude advantages we are getting. I'll read that version, I'll tell you. So this way we will go on an approach. Forget about what it does for others, but let us become first a better person than what we are now. And that is when the whole purpose, idea of learning the Gita will come into play. Okay? Now, this particular group, what I will do is we'll make another group so that we'll have all the shlokas one below the other for memorization again and again. So if I put it in this usual group, what will happen? You will have to keep searching. So to avoid that, we will make another same. We will call it as Gita chanting. Okay? Gita chanting, and in that we will post today the first shloka. I'll now explain what that shloka is, and tomorrow morning, being an auspicious Ekadashi day, you all can start chanting. And grace of God, we should reach where we want to reach eventually. Okay, now I'll just take you on this shloka. So this is chapter 2, verse number 4. Katam bhishmamaham sankhe द्रोणं च मधुसूदन ईशुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजाहार्वरिसूदन. After the entire first chapter, which is where Arjuna has been only lamenting, crying, and showing his weakness in all manners, Vishada Yoga. After that, now he then says, Hey Krishna, Madhusudana means the one who is the destroyer of enemies. That is the meaning of Madhusudana. Now, which means he knows what is the meaning of enemy also. No? What is he saying? Hey Krishna, how can I fight with Bhishma Pitamaha, Dronacharya, and Kripacharya? He doesn't mention that, but Kripacharya. And also he says, how can I fight with my compassionate cousins? Now this Arjuna, who had taken a vow during the Vastraharan, and from there they all have made so many arrangements in terms of how to get to a successful end of the war. Now Arjuna, I tell you, he had 26 Divya Astras, and the greatest of all, which can destroy the entire planet, was Pashupastatra, which was only with Vishwamitra and Arjuna. Only two of them had Pashupastastra. So that way, now when he has done all this, hear what nonsense he is talking. He is looking at his uncle, his teacher, his grandfather, his cousins. What was his job? His job was to see that adharma is on the other side and I am fighting for dharma. That's all. Nobody else. Arjuna, a person who had said, what do you see on the tree, when Dronacharya had asked him as a student, where a bird was placed and he had to aim the eye, he says, I only can see the eye of the bird, not even the bird. His focus was so strong. And today, this is where he stands. Why? That delusion, wrong understanding of the situation had come in. So taking this theme, we will start our sadhana journey. We have already started in other ways. Now this is one more way we will start, and then we will go to other shlokas. We will pick up. I'll not restrict myself to these main whatever chapters we are learning. Anywhere from the Gita, which basically has to refine us in a holistic manner. That is our purpose. We will go that way.